Well, good evening and welcome to Wide Awake News. It's Monday, December 17th, 2012, and I suppose everybody's ready for December 21st. I think we're going to all party like there's no tomorrow because, hell, for all we know, there is no tomorrow. And if you're really worried about it, I got this bridge I'd like to talk to you about after the show. But in any case, tonight, we're going to do the Alternative Energy Hour, as we usually do, for the first hour of Wide Awake News on Mondays. And I've got an interesting couple of guests tonight that are going to discuss a very interesting project, one that we've covered somewhat on the Smart Scarecrow show. That's my Thursday program. Sterling Allen did a presentation for us on his reporting of this project. But tonight we have Bob Grenier. Grenier, did I say your name right, Bob?
Yep.
Okay. Got Bob Grenier from quantumheat.org. And frankly, I'm not sure I'm even going to try to say Matthew's name because I'd probably get it wrong. But in the southern translation would be Matthew Velat. Is that close?
It's perfect.
I'll be darned. It even sounds good in Southern. But in any case, I want to get right into the presentation because this particular program we do have limited time. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Bob. Bob, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm pretty good. I'm here with my friends, the whiskey.
Yes, I notice you have quite a selection.
I'm here with Matthew.
Yeah, just before the show, we were talking a little bit about the finer things in life, and I mentioned to Bob that here in the South, if you got whiskey that's more than a couple hours old, I mean that's almost stale, and if you let it sit around for a couple of days, the stuff eats through the plastic milk jug. And he's bragging about stuff that's 10, 15, 20 years old. I mean, I'm sorry times are so hard for you, Bob. You can't afford any fresh whiskey. But
well, actually, we're in one of our other facilitators' house here whilst we're staying in Switzerland, and he just parked us in here and said, "Unfortunately, you've got all these drinks to try." So this is actually Nicholas's residence overlooking Lake Geneva.
Well, in any case, Bob, I'm going to kind of turn it over to you. We've got probably about 5 minutes here before we start hearing the background music telling us it's time to go into a break. So we've got a fairly short segment here now that the introductions are over. Would like to get a little bit of an idea of just what your project is all about. Why, obviously, do relatively sane young men get involved in going out tilting windmills on this Quixotic prospect you're getting yourselves involved in? Please, take it away.
Okay, well, a number of people decided to take themselves to South Korea to the International Conference on Cold Fusion 17 in Daejeon from the 11th to the 17th of August. And it became very clear to us that not only was something emerging that could have profound effect on humanity in a positive way, but that it wasn't really being looked at by the mainstream media, and the message wasn't really getting out. And the things that really kind of inspired myself and some of the other people that got involved with the project was hearing things like Piantelli, who at the last minute decided not to come to the conference because he was getting such great results with his nickel hydrogen system, and he didn't want to have difficulty with commercial sensitivity and so forth. So in such a competitive environment, and so essentially what we're looking at is an energy source which is derived from actually relatively in this whole field quite a simple experiment based on nickel, which is fairly abundant, with a number of other elements or compounds, and hydrogen, and it burns it not in a sort of standard oxidizing way, but in a much more a smaller way at the atomic scale, such that significant energy is released.
All right, so to clarify, we're not talking about combustion as most people would think of.
No,
combustion.
I mean, it's not combustion, but the jury's out with the particular process that's involved. And really, it's defining a new area of physics. And, we feel that, with other people reporting significant excess heat, and another scientist there called Chelani, who was showing a cell employing this science, showing excess heat. We were very interested as to why this message wasn't getting out into the wider world, and so there was a real challenge. That was meaning that this field wasn't investable, and the people in it who had been working in it for a very long time weren't getting any younger. And the founder of this science in modern times, a guy called Martin Fleischmann, along with a chap called Stanley Pons. Unfortunately, Martin Fleischmann died a week and a half before the conference started, and it really focused everyone's minds that really we should be trying to get this message out. And for me, personally, the replication of transmutation experiments, that's where you take a non-naturally occurring isotope of an element, and through this process, you create another non-naturally occurring isotope of an element, was a bit of an epiphany. It basically said this process is categorically real. Can we show that it also produces excess heat that is, has utility? And so by the second day, we'd decided that myself and some of the other Generation X and Y people that were there, could we make this, show this to the world in a way that people could stop rubbishing it, denying that it exists, and so forth.
Well, you mentioned Martin Fleischmann and Pons, but and I think there's probably a lot of people in my regular audience who are going to know who Fleischmann and Pons are. But you also mentioned a fellow named Chelani that I doubt very seriously many in the audience are going to be familiar with. Can you give us a little bit of what he's contributed to this?
Okay, well, Francesco Chelani is how you say his name. Chelani has been working in this field for 23 years, since the beginning. He's been working along with actually quite a number of scientists in Italy. Italy has really, along with Japan, been leaders in exploring this area of science for the last 23 years. And he's had some significant advances over that time, and more recently with nickel hydrogen systems. He showed a cell that used an alloy of nickel and copper wire that he treated in a very special way that appeared to produce significant excess heat on demand. By flicking a switch a few hours later, it was consistently producing excess heat in Texas, I think it was, wasn't it?
Texas, yeah.
Yeah, Texas, at a National Instruments conference or exhibition down there, where I think there was 3,500 plus attendees, quite openly, and he brought that cell, shut it down, and 2 days later it was in South Korea, and he fired up the same cell and it did the same thing. And so that was really interesting, and we thought, well, if there are other experiments, or if we can
I'm sure you can hear the music, Bob.
Yeah.
That's our cue that we're about to move into a commercial break.
Oh, okay.
To the audience, please do stand by for these blatantly commercial announcements, and we will be back momentarily. And we're back from the break. Interesting discussion comparing, tastes and liquor in the background. It's not really relevant to the conversation tonight. But as we left, we were discussing the introductory portion of this presentation, giving you some idea of what the various motivations are. And I think that's about where we need to pick it up. So, Bob, please do continue. I don't want to. We're on such a tight schedule here. I don't want to steal any more of your time than I have to.
Okay, so the motivation was basically to make the field investable, and in order to do that, we had this presentation that we came up with at the ICCF 17. We called it "Jump the Hurdle," and it was essentially making the world understand that this exists. It has the potential to change humanity, and that it is real, and people should be lobbying their governments and say, why aren't we, making investments into this field so that we can reap its benefits. And so essentially the purpose of the MFMP is to find a candidate experiment, improve it to the point that we can guarantee every time, or close to guarantee every time that someone switches it on, it's going to produce the effect, and then ship it around the world to multiple independent locations that are respected and trusted, and they can then replicate the experiment. It can then be undeniable that it exists, and then they can explore what makes the experiment work better, so that we can understand the science moving forward. So where are we in our current progress? Well, we have built, with the help of some kind donations from the public, our own capital investments in time and cash, and also some generous funding by Paul Hunt in the US, a number of cells, the first of which was fired up in the US and went through its calibrations and very successfully did the loading part of, well, we were replicating Chelani's work, the loading part of his experiment, and what that loading is, it's where the metal wire is absorbing the hydrogen inside itself, and that's necessary for the effect to then occur later down the line. And what we found was we probably toasted that wire, and we weren't really able to be confident about anything we saw after we probably damaged the wire. But we learned a hell of a lot of things that we could do to advance the experiment, and we started to really engage the public, because we were doing something I think that's not been done before, which was publishing the data live to the internet. So a lot of these experiments typically go on behind closed doors with a few people. They do the experiment and then they publish it, and people say, well, I can't believe you because this is wrong, that's wrong, and you might have chosen the data that suited your arguments. So we made progress both in creating the cells, the experimental framework that could then be published live, and the first part of the experiment, which was loading the hydrogen into the wire. Where what we learned from the US, we then bounced over. They took a break and then assisted us in the EU cell, which took on the mantle, or the baton, should I say, and we loaded the cell very well. Matthew worked tirelessly over a good number of weeks, and I'll bring him in here. We'll get closer together. Let's have a whiskey love in here. So we're round the other way. We should change seats. So he loaded the wire also, and it would seem that on the active run, he was better able to achieve something that we could consider more significant with regard to excess heat. Now, the jury's still out. There's lots of welcome challenges on our website to the type of calorimetry that's being used and some parts of the cell design. And we are looking to address these things. Now, this is the beauty of the process that hopefully we're developing, which we will talk about in the next segment. But it's allowing people to guide us with their experience to improve the experiment and take it forward. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Matthew?
Well, I think you summarized that very good.
Well, bottom line, have you seen anything from your devices that is interesting? I mean, do you have any interesting results to report?
Well, I mean, I think the loading is interesting.
Yeah,
firstly,
the loading part is very interesting because we're using a wire that is called constantant, which is supposed to be very constant, and it's just a heating.
Its resistance is constant with changes in heat.
It is a heating wire, so it's supposed to be very, very predictable.
Akin to neochrome?
Sorry?
Akin to neochrome? It's a nickel chromium alloy?
No, it's a copper. It's something like a.
Is there a specific porosity to it? Is it the crystalline structure of this? Does it have the little 50 nanometer cavities that we were told was one of the keys to making Fleischmann and Pons experiment work?
If you look at our website, Matthew spent some time with a very good.
Gonna have to ask you to hold it right there, guys. I hear that music in the background there. These breaks come real fast, you know. You'd be surprised. This 1 hour show goes in a heartbeat. That's one of the reasons why I was concerned about making sure we get your material out there. To the audience, please do stand by. We're moving to our second break of the evening. We'll be right back after these commercial announcements. And we're back from our second break of the evening. So we've got 2 more segments to go, and I happen to know we've got quite a bit of material we want to cover. So rather than me sitting here yammering, I'm going to turn it over to these fellows and let them do some yammering. Where did we leave off, Bob? I know you're not wealthy people. I mean, you guys were not born with a silver spoon in your nose, or were you? I don't know. But bottom line is, even though LENR is a relatively inexpensive form of this technology to investigate, none of this stuff is cheap. I mean, even a 16-year-old bottle of ancient whiskey, doesn't come easy.
We're just getting this free off Nicholas.
I see. So you're mooching the whiskey. How does one go about funding a project like this? I mean, do you have a rich daddy who's just writing you checks? How are you coming up with the dough to put this deal together?
Well,
I wish we had.
Yeah, I really wish we have. I mean, to give you an example, the laboratory that the EU cell has moved to for yesterday, and we're just setting up in, is costing $2,400 for 1 month, and that is about half of the donations we've received from the public. Now, Nicholas is fronting half of that, and we're going to use some of the remaining donation money that we've received so far. Now, we're hoping to raise money, and we'll talk about that in probably our last segment. But on our website right now, you can make a donation. And it really has helped the European cell in our second run. Mm-hmm. We bought some great power supplies that helped remove one of them.
That made a big difference.
Yeah, big difference in the variables. And when we've needed to buy this, that, or the other, like a laser thermometer or something like that, we've been able to do that. What I wanted to do was to follow up from the last segment where we were talking about help from the crowd. And what financial help is one thing, but we're also getting commentary. And we kind of basically developed what we're calling live open science. And essentially, it's kind of like we're publishing all of the drawings, the software, the hardware, and we're publishing our data live, and so that, and also the analysis tools that we are using to analyze the data, the spreadsheets or whatever, we're publishing that so that people can then look at the live data, download the live data, and start analyzing it. And it's quite scary to be having all of that data out there. It's uncut, and you go to sleep and you wake up the following morning, and there's 10 graphs that people have been producing in their back bedroom with a load of questions as to why this happened and why that happened. But it's absolutely fantastic because it's involving people that are retired physicists and professors and current professors, as well as people that are very insightful and are very into this technology and have wanted to be involved. And it gives them a way they can be involved, and not just meaninglessly. They are involved right at the cutting edge as it's happening, and it's just wonderful. And we want to take this forward by allowing people to collaborate in a new section of the website, which we're launching this week, where they will be actually able to work on mini science projects like making electronic circuits to drive the effects, either current pulses or radio frequency pulses, or to look at some of the scientific aspects like the effects of heat on annealing and crystal grain size, and maybe what loading means in terms of the amount of hydrogen in volume that you're getting into the wire. Lots of different things. I don't know if you want to add to that.
What live open science is about is mainly taking what open science is as a way to communicate throughout the open source model that was brought by the Linux Foundation. So it's not something you can stop, actually, because it's either you're watching us, either you ignore us, either you participate with us, but we're going to go forward anyways. So there is absolutely nothing that really can stop the phenomenon of live open science to go forward.
Well,
so it's
there is an obvious question that I'd like you to address. I mean, having been out there on the internet, as an internet media whore for some time now, I can tell you that I get a lot of positive ego reinforcement from being out here. I get a lot of very favorable comments on my videos. I get a lot of very favorable emails, but I also get a significant percentage of trash. And of course, there are those out there who are just flat bored children and have nothing else better to do than to use the internet to tease, torture, and malign.
Gary.
And how do you handle that aspect? I mean, obviously, you must have very good filters.
Well, surprisingly, we're not filtering anything. And I think what's happening is because we're not claiming we've seen something after the effect and publishing data which might have been selectively chosen, people can't criticize that we're just making it up and choosing something that's convenient, because they get to see what we get to see. And then secondly, they can comment and say, I don't like this part of the experiment. This is the reason why I don't like this part of the experiment. Have you considered doing something to address this? And we go, yes, we have. We are doing it. Or no, we haven't. Thank you very much. Has anyone got more to add to this suggestion so that it can be even better? And they can see on a daily basis that we're improving our technique and the experiment, and they are involved. And so I think it probably scares those people that would, I mean, I'm not doing a call out to everyone to populate our blog posts with meaningless blog posts because they've got spare time.
We have enough.
But generally speaking, we're really bowled over by the positive engagement we're having.
So yes, the commentary on your work has been generally helpful and perhaps even supportive?
Both supportive and helpful. We cannot say that 100% of what we are reading is really helpful, but there is some key people and key remarks, sometimes from not scientific people, that are really valuable. So we are taking these and logging that and registering all these very good inputs from people. So that's what makes actually the filter on. We have to go through all the work that has been
Okay, so bottom line is you're not deluged with suggestions about following the stuff that was channeled from the anal probing gray space alien. You're not getting that type of
no, because it's just simply not relevant. I mean, I don't know who anyone would be speaking to when they would write that kind of stuff. Essentially, if people haven't got $10 to contribute to the project, but they have got time and a mind, then there will be many opportunities for them to make a very significant difference to this science, and this is going to benefit all of our children. One thing I want to talk about, if you've just got a bit of time, is transmutation. I know I mentioned it earlier, but they've discovered recently that if you crush various rocks, you end up with different elements after you crush them to when you begin. And you also get neutron emissions. And this accounts for the distributions of things like iron in the center of continents when you get aluminium at the subduction zones and plate boundaries. And that is absolutely fascinating because it's another categorical proof that this process exists naturally.
And that's a great place to hold it right there. But remember where you left off. I'm hearing the bumper music playing in the background.
Okay.
So we are going to take this third break of the evening, and when we come back, we'll be in the last segment of the presentation. So we're going to have to wrap up the last few items on our punch list. Thank you very much for sitting through these commercial announcements. We'll be back in just a moment. I'll tell you, this 1 hour program goes mighty fast when you're having fun, and we do have a very interesting presentation going on tonight. We're talking to Bob and Matthew from the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project. They're discussing the inner workings of what they're doing. And just before we left, we were talking about live open science and what your process is for engaging your audience in what you're doing. And I would like you, please, before we get off onto the next bit, this is our last segment, so we do have to be somewhat aware of the time. I'd appreciate it if you'd, let's summarize a little bit on this live open science so people can really get a feel for just what you guys are all about. And then I leave it to you to pick it up and take it wherever you want to go.
So in a nutshell, live open science is meant to bring science to everybody, to prove that or unprove that an effect is working or not working. We are not buying anything to people. We are not showing pre-convinced ID or anything like that. Everything is open. Everything is downloadable. It's free to use. There is a stream of data that is coming out from our servers where you can follow exactly what are the numbers coming out of the cell in real time.
And you got a logbook that says what experiments are occurring at one time.
And you can cross the logbook with the current data to understand what is happening inside the experiment. So it's really transparent way to do it.
And essentially, we see the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project as one project. And if you actually type in liveopenscience.com and .org now, it points to the quantumheat.org site where the MFMP project is being held. But we hope that in time we'll have a whole lot of software tools that allow multiple experiments to be carried out in this way, where people all around the world can engage with a scientific project. And again, that's going to need more fundraising and so forth. But we hope that a lot of this work can be done and off the back of this particular project, which has such profound potential benefits for humanity and the planet's survival, really. And so in the next week or so, we'll be launching a Kickstarter. People may be aware of this means of raising funds, and we'll be looking to raise about $500,000. And the purpose of that money is to, bear in mind we're a non-profit organisation, we're a community interest company based in the UK, and if we ever folded, assets and cash would go to Save the Children. So we want to raise $500,000, and that is to produce a minimum of 5 full experimental kits. Once we've established all of the parameters, the protocol for the experiment, and the actual experimental design, such that it produces the effect reliably, we want to be able to ship that to a minimum of 5 respected institutions around the world. The scientists are telling us you need at least 3, otherwise people aren't going to believe you. No one's going to believe us because we want this to happen. So we have to ship this to respected institutions, and maybe it might be the US, EU, China, India, and Japan. And these, if you look at the map of the world that NASA recently produced, showing where the lights are on at night, it points to these countries that I've just mentioned that seriously need a solution. This will create a new global economic boom. It'll be a new industrial revolution. We need this right now. The world needs jobs, and it needs energy. It needs energy to stop the forests being destroyed. It needs energy to desalinate water, and it needs energy to grow crops in places that otherwise would not be able to do it, because we need to feed our children, we need to keep them warm, and we need to make sure that they have water to drink without destroying the other creatures and flora that inhabit this planet. So essentially, keep looking at quantumheat.org. Follow the experiment. Please get involved in any way you can. Like I say, with the Collaborate section coming online, there'll be some really interesting ways that you can help write some very detailed pieces of research and help guide certain aspects of the project. And if you are able, if you don't want to get involved in the science, you don't particularly want to follow the project, but you are interested in seeing cheaper energy bills, you are interested in seeing your smartphones and so forth still have the ability to use a touch screen, because the transmutation potential of this technology allows us to create things like rare earth elements potentially from other elements. You know, if you're interested in all these sort of things, then if you've got $10 or whatever, please consider coming to the site quantumheat.org and making contribution. You can see on the site we publish some of our direct costs, and you can actually, we're not only publishing what we're doing, we're publishing how much it's costing.
For every single item, there is the provider, the website, and even some of the communication we have with them.
Yeah. So
a stupid question, and you know, you tell me if it's out of turn or if I need to save this for another time. But besides your core group, is there anybody that you're aware of who's seen what you're doing and has decided as an independent to pick up the torch and work along with you?
We've got people that are copying our model for other types of science. We've got people that are copying our model for this type of science. Yeah. We've got other people. At the Rome conference, I had energy companies, and I had other people that are looking to replicate Celani's work and other work coming up to us and saying, we want to work with you. And it was really wonderful. But I must say also that we're not the only ones working to try and bring this out into the open. That there is a project where you know, it's a different type of project using a different type of technology, and maybe that's time for another show. But it was wonderful seeing school kids at the Pirelli school in Rome getting involved with this kind of technology. What I will say is, with the transmutation experiments that Toyota replicated from Mitsubishi Industrial of transmutation, with the experiments of crushing rock, we we have some very, very good experiments. One's much easier. The crushing rocket, pretty much anyone can do if they've got a press and a sodium iodide detector. But so you don't need to be.
Of course, neutron detectors grow on trees. That's no problem.
Well, no, but yeah, the point is that it's an exceptionally simple thing to do, relatively, to prove this to any skeptical, scientific body that LE&R exists, low energy nuclear reactions. Beyond that, we need to produce an experiment. The world needs to have an experiment that shows that it produces useful heat.
Guys, we're coming down to about 2 or 3 minutes, so
okay.
I'm going to start hearing that final little blast of bumper music here within the next couple of minutes.
Okay.
So it's probably a good idea at this point. First of all, I want to tell my regular audience, yes, these fellows are going to do the Thursday night presentation at the Smart Scarecrow Show with me. Obviously, we have a much more flexible venue there where we don't have to be so constrained for time. But please, guys, it's probably best you think in terms of summarizing at this point.
So, yes, cold fusion for 23 years have been very open to the public, but it was only in a scientific way. What we're doing is using most of the internet tools to bring that to everybody, and we're looking not only for fundraising, but also for people that can help on the website, can help on the scientific side, can help on the data acquisition, can help on the programming side, can help
on the material science, on the physics, on the electronics, on the electrical.
So many things that we are building to make this live open science a real, true, new nature in science.
And with the expressed intention of creating the new fire. This creates heat and it creates ash in the form of elemental changes. It is the new fire, and it is quite possibly the most important invention man has ever made.
Whew. You still got a minute to burn. All right, get out some of that 16-year-old stuff. If I was a little bit closer to you, I'd send you some fresh stuff, because I do feel sorry for you having to drink all that old whiskey.
Well, Gary, really, thank you for giving us the opportunity to come on your show and share with your audience the project. We really seriously hope they take a look at it. We're going to try and make it even more fun. We've got a character that we've been designing that no one knows about yet, which is kind of like looks somewhere between the various reactors that are being created to explore this science. And we'll be having T-shirts and little 3D models as part of the rewards for the Kickstarter.
I can tell you that merchandising always gets them. If you got a T-shirt and a coffee mug, that might be a hell of a way to raise some money to get the project going.
Yeah.
To the audience, I should mention the website is quantumheat.org. You'll find that the project is very well explained. There is a very clear, easy to find donate button if you like what these guys have in mind and you'd like to chip in a few bucks, help them get going. Please do.
And please, if you can if you want to follow the experiment, go to the follow tab, and under there you can see near daily updates, and you can see how other people are engaging with the project, and you can see that any money that you do give is going to real things.
All right. Well, I think we managed to get it out there, guys. I am hearing the bumper music in the background. It's time to say goodnight to Bob and Matthew, at least until Thursday. Thank you so much for your presentation, fellas.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
All righty. And that was the Alternative Energy Hour for December 17th, 2012. Please do stay tuned. Charlie McGrath and Demcat will be along in just a few minutes after these announcements.